So as you guys know, over the past couple of months, we have been working with people who are looking for jobs in sales or marketing. And we've been connecting them with sales and marketing leaders to help them apply best practices from sales or marketing to their job search, right? Which sounds pretty simple, but it's not easy. And Heidi, you jumped in before. We wrote some B2B style emails with you. We talk about how you might be able to prospect to get into your next job, how you might be able to stand out, build a personal brand, things of that nature. Dale is one of the best when it comes to that. I know that I sent you guys his LinkedIn before. I'm sure you got a chance to take a look. Dale is one of the people that we look at as an example of someone who is living these things every day. So Heidi, would love to kind of hear a little bit more about where you're at, maybe give us some context, and then I'll let Dale kind of lead the show and hopefully help you out.
Okay. So my background is I spent my first career like 25 years in TV news. Okay. So that's been long gone. I got into sales. I have been working primarily in the shopping mall industry. I sell media, experiential activations and sponsorships into the shopping mall venues. I think everyone's acutely aware of what's going on with the shopping mall industry. And I was laid off at the end of February. Have not worked since. I am working on a commission-only structure with a media agency, but it's not really, they sell into malls, but they have some out of home, but otherwise it's not really what I want to be doing and not where I see my main interests lying. So I thought I would pivot and work on getting in with a brand of some sort, or I don't know. I've applied to a lot of different types of jobs. The one thing I'm not that I see a lot available in sales is in the IT or tech industry, SaaS, whatever. And that's just not me. I can't. I've talked to some people and they said it would take me so long to ramp up to be able to make the money that I need to make that it's not really the right avenue for me to take. And I agree. I don't really have the interest in it. So I've been doing a little scrambling, getting a lot of disappointment. I went down the road pretty far with a couple of companies, and I think I'm not getting it, because it's out of industry, but my industry is dry, and there are so many qualified people available. And I wonder if it might be a little bit of my age. So I think that might.
29?
59.
20. Okay.
I mean, I don't say that on my resume, but if you look at, you can do the math from college. I mean, I certainly can't be, young. So I don't know. I mean, I think that there's a lot going against people in my category.
It makes me sad to hear that's the way you've been treated, more or less. But
I don't, it's only a feeling. I can't say that I've been.
Yeah, it's interesting though, like how feelings can be projected through such situations, or just, we have an innate awareness as individuals. Or you have an innate awareness of your situation, specifically what it is that you're looking for, what it is you're trying to do. Right. And in the process of somebody basically saying no, it's easy to kind of read between the lines in some cases for us individually, because we know who we are. So what I hear first and foremost is that you know yourself very well, which is extremely important. And awareness of self is what is needed in order to be able to get to the finish line that you're trying to get to begin with. So I think a lot of the things that you just talked about, I have a ton of questions, but one of the statements I want to make is I see a roadmap in everything that you're speaking on. I see a roadmap that you've developed, that you've been working on. You want to go back into the industry you've been in, is what it really sounds like.
Yeah.
But there's something keeping you from that, which is where the industry is at. But I wonder to myself, which is the first question, is, well, how do you innovate that concept? So like Toys R Us is closed, but Bass Pro Shops aren't, and so if you worked with mall space and retail, what's stopping you from kind of getting in touch with or in tune with other types of retail outlets that are doing well during this time and that are still thriving?
Is Bass Outlets doing well right now?
I mean, not on the surface level, but the thing is that they have products in there like guns and fishing lures, and fishing lures are like the hot thing to buy, apparently. I mean, it's a multi-million-dollar, I think it's $1 billion industry actually at this point. And we're talking about little worms.
Okay, so no, I get that, but let me explain that I'm not a retail specialist. I am more I sell experience. Now, it doesn't mean I can't do that for a brand or a retailer. I could, but experience by its nature involves human gathering in general. Now, I mean, people are getting creative and are trying to bringing people together in ways that are more virtual. But I've had a lot of my clients, because I work off my cell phone. So even though I don't work with my last company, I get a lot of client calls, and Comcast called me, and they were a big client of mine, and they said, where can we go? What can we do to be in front of people? What are you seeing? What are people doing? So that because they engage with the shopper, they like to go and say, here's our product, touch it, feel it, try it, buy it. And so that without them being able to have that human engagement, they're stymied and they're confused. And some of the places that I applied to are similarly, it's an engagement kind of platform, and it's just, I can't sell that anymore because it's not happening yet. I mean, I'm working with this company with Live Nation on doing remote, doing concerts that are drive-in concerts and selling sponsorships. And it is just the logistics of understanding the different jurisdictions and what the rules are in every municipality. It's just overwhelming. So it's everything, nothing moves forward. It's very, very frustrating.
Yeah. So I hear you talking about experiences though, and the idea too of like, you're talking about a customer that's come to you and said, at some point it's come to you and said, well, how do we innovate? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where your real expertise is, and that's what you need to be showing off. It doesn't matter if Bass Pro Shop is kind of foreign to what it is that you would be doing for them. It's the idea of like, what could you innovate for them that they're not thinking about right now that you could help with? For example, like I have a customer that they're a media agency, and schools are closed, right? But they work with some of the biggest brands there are in the block, from entertainment companies to actual products that retailers would sell. And the problem is like you talked about, a lot of the places that are traditional for them to be in, they're not open.
Right.
But what they've done is they've innovated and they've found outlets for them. For example, they have a connection with a youth center organization that has 40 locations across 140 locations across 40 states in the United States. And they're all open and they're all at max capacity. And now they're using max capacity of what they're allowed to have in there. Right. But okay. It's the idea of being able to say like, okay, well, we've identified this. And now how do we create the experience though, that you're looking to put together inside of this new concept, right? So lines when the parents are dropping the kids off, right? Like I've heard all kinds of crazy ideas around this stuff. It's super innovative and fun too, though. But like that's where a lot of the time I think we sit back and we say, my industry's not hiring, things aren't working very well with it, and we're going with the flow of what's happening in that moment, right? Like I'm in a sales training capacity. I sold copiers for 14 years prior to this, right? I sold a lame, boring, bland, generic vanilla product, right? And I spiced it up. And I'd walk into your office brighter and shinier than any Skittles bag that you could, pour out, right? And I was loud, but it was a clear and concise message around innovation. What has this guy got going on that's so much different, and why do I want to learn about it so badly? Well, that's the point. I'm trying to do that to you in the first place. And then from there, figuring out if the relationship can become a fit throughout the process. Right. And that's what people want to be taken down, not so much this idea or concept around whether or not you have expertise in their industry. It's about ideas. Think about all the great innovators of our time and the generations and centuries even before us, that in the midst of becoming the most relevant people or the most wealthiest or whatever the case may be, it was always during something that happened in the world that everybody was going, I'm not really sure what to do here.
That's
so
true.
Here you are in the midst of COVID-19, and you can start being that person, right? Rockefeller's my favorite example of this that I always talk about. But, we were 90% virtual before the pandemic started. And so all we had to do was make a 10% shift. That was it. We've thrived and made more money than the company has in its existence, even though we're only on year 2 right now. But if you think about in the course of 18 months, the massive growth, 16 months of massive growth that we've had in the middle of the most downturned economic time that we've had since I've had a company, it's almost as if we don't know that it exists internally. right? We wouldn't if we didn't watch the news,
Yeah,
basically,
right.
or have customers that are dealing with it, right? But even with those people, it's just about innovating their own approaches and helping them to create patience, but also diligence and trust and credibility inside of their communities, instead of just being, quote unquote, the hot stuff, on the block. Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not about that anymore. It's not about the flashy and shiny things. It's about like, what can you do that's relevant for me and that creates real impact in this moment? So I would tell you that, like, I wouldn't leave your space is what I'm really saying from what I hear.
Oh.
I wouldn't leave your space. Like, I would find people that are innovating around your space, that are tied to your space. Like, when I think the experiences that you're talking about, for me, like as a child of the 80s, well, I'm a millennial.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about how like the mall was like our favorite place to go.
Oh, yeah.
And that, anytime you walked past a kiosk, it was like, hey, let me show you something, like all day long. And for me, as a kinesthetic and an extrovert, I mean, it's like a trap, right? Like, I'm just like, yeah, what's up? Like, oh, you want to sign this thing? Like, cool, man. What do I get? Nothing. Oh, that's cool. But again, I can understand like the human connection portion of it, but I can also see, you're talking about, well, how do we innovate around virtual? Well, I got a buddy that he went from literally doing on-site events for massive companies to shifting entirely virtually, and they haven't fired one person. They haven't closed any their office space. I mean, that's a wild thought, right? So I think for you, it's about this idea of understanding what it is that you could innovate inside of your own space, because you already know it. You know the hands-on experience very well. Yeah. How can you innovate it? That's the real question.
Well, the one thing I'm doing, I talked to my old boss, who was no longer with my last company, but he's now with another shopping mall developer, Centennial. I was talking to him this morning, and he said, it's great you're getting your real estate license, because he felt like I'm actually, you didn't hear that, but I'm studying for my real estate license just because I have to be busy. And I think it's something I could fall back on potentially. But he said that would be good for me in that business, because he believes that it's going to be more and more important to be more diversified in that field. He wants to hire me. He's currently writing a job description for me, but he doesn't know if he's in budgets right now. He doesn't know if it'll go through. And even if it does, it's not until next year. So I want to believe that will happen, but I can't just hang my hat on that. I need to keep learning and growing and developing and putting myself out there.
So do you think real estate is the best place for you to head that in that direction from that perspective?
Well, it's ancillary to my core business. I mean, these are REITs, real estate investment trusts, that mostly own shopping malls and own these properties. They're turning a lot of them into lifestyle centers. So there will be a retail component and the dining and activity, but there will also be residential. They're building a lot of residential around these malls now. So being able to lease being able to lease and sell to residential as well as retail could be beneficial to have that as an extra piece. I'm just trying to make myself as marketable as possible in this time. So
I hear that. I hear some innovation there. Like, I hear you being able to create something innovative around your personal brand from that perspective, to be able to say like, these are the things that I've developed in the midst of this downturn. But again, I still think, like, I hear you saying this one guy, right? Like when I quick story, when I left the copier industry, I went and worked for an organization that was just a bad decision, is the bottom line. Very bad decision. And it almost sank my ship, the one you were talking about controlling earlier. But instead of allowing that to happen, I said, well, I can do the safe thing, and I can just go to these people I know, because I think a network is extremely important.
Yes.
So I like that you've gone internally to your network and reached out. But I also said to myself, well, and I was posting on LinkedIn at the time, I just started, and I started to amass this weird little cult following. And it was mostly just a bunch of copier people that were trying to figure out what I was doing to beat them, right? Shout out to all those folks that might be watching. But the idea is that in the process of the brand I was building, I had become something insatiable, right? Like it was like, ooh, the copier warrior, this sounds cool, right? And so I went to LinkedIn and said, hey, anybody and everybody who breathes air, you got something for me? And I want to say I got over 170 total submissions, like internally to myself. Like I became an HR department for myself, like taking people, asking me to work for them. I printed one resume of the 49 interviews I did, right? One resume. And all I had done was built a brand. I didn't really have a lot of experience like you do. I just built something that was not common in my space. And because of that, I stuck out like a sore thumb, and everybody made fun of me, ridiculed me. You know, I got stories I could tell you for years, right? I've even got some of the letters that people wrote about me to my own clients printed out, like that I hold on to, that I hold as trophies. Because it's amazing when people can say the kind of things that they have about me without ever meeting me. You got to know you're doing something extremely well, right? And so the idea for me is listening to what it is that you're talking about, that it's not just about getting your real estate license. It's about how that helps your brand. What is the diversification of you is what it's about. You have you already told me your age, which I appreciate you doing that, by the way. You do not look that old. Well, not even close. So I would just go ahead and tell people you're not that old while you're at it. It doesn't matter. But because that's the idea, is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't. Right. That's a stupid cop out for people to be making in the first place. That is personal preference. That is people putting something else in front of the true, authentic you that they need to understand and know. And so you have to make the effort to help them to know that, bigger than just a piece of paper that's your resume and all the experience that you have had on it. It needs to be like, this is my personal brand. I'm Heidi. This is what I do. I have a real estate license. I'm innovating in this industry. Get on board or leave, because you know, whoever wants this is going to get it. And all the people that are passing it by, I'm sorry about it, but I'll be seeing you when I'm competing against you.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there is something to the fact that in this day and age, because there are so many candidates available, the age thing, I don't think it's never been a factor for me in the past, I don't believe. I mean, I think I'm a person with energy, and they can see that. They know that I can sell, I present well. But the fact that I think when they start calculating out, okay, how long is she really going to be with us? If you're looking for someone that you want to grow with your company, and although, I mean, people don't necessarily stay. I don't know what the average number of years is that people stay with a company, but I think there was one company I was interviewing with that I think that was something that came up in their minds, because they were looking for, they're a company where people stay 20, 25, 30 years. So I don't know. It wasn't a real estate company, but it was, you know, just another area I was looking at.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm a young kid that has never allowed that side of it to get to me at all. And if when people said things to me like, you've only got a couple years of experience, or I've got 30 years, you know, I just sit back and be like, let me show you how it's done, because I'm not going to talk about it. I am what I am, and I'll prove it. You know, I used to joke that I was going to get "talk is cheap" tattooed on my neck, and then one of my friends did it, so I was like, no, that didn't look good, so I didn't do it. But the idea of wearing that motto around my throat was a thought process that actually helped with my mindset, that we can sit here and talk about who's got more experience and who's got less experience, or we can see who shows up and who actually gets it done, right? You know, I had a deal one time, I remember it was a massive deal, and in the process of it, they basically told me that it's the incumbents to lose, is what they told me. And I remember when they said that, I thought, oh, this is good, because all I've got to do is differentiate myself enough inside of this process. Like even in the process of like going as a candidate for looking for a job like yourself, right? The idea of using something like our crumpled letter technique. We have a ton of students that come out of the professional selling program at UCF that do this. And then I have a ton across the United States as well too, that I mentor, that they create a crumpled letter approach, which is a B2B sales approach that we've created here at the Sales Rebellion. But what they do is they make it a resume. They put a cover letter on it and they make it a resume. When they turn the cover letter, there's a crumpled up piece of paper, and it literally is just a letter. And it highlights in the bullet points, where in the B2B side, we would tell people these are the things we fix. What it highlights is their goals, aspirations, and the things that they've accomplished. But what it says is, you're probably wondering why this is all crumpled up. Well, we both know that 90% of the resumes that come across your desk go in the trash. And so I pre-crumpled this one to make it easier for you to throw away. And the employer looks at that and goes, oh, wow, this is gutsy and it's fun, right? And so they
gotta meet this person.
They go into this whole different mode where even if they're not hiring, they call you. And we've actually used it to, we've done that to say, even as a salesperson, you know, like I'm selling financial services, that I take it to the HR department to get their attention, just to get them to get me in front of the CEO sometimes too, right? Like if I'm a salesperson. But again, I digress. The idea being that kind of experience are you creating at the front end for people as well too?
Yeah.
How are you translating your brand through that? What are you doing to interrupt the typical pattern? I heard you say that somebody had 1,500 applications when I jumped in here earlier.
Yeah.
For one job. And that to me is mind-boggling. But I was around in 2008.
It was unprecedented. I could hear it in her voice how upset she was.
It's intense. But I do remember 2008. And I remember there, like everyone, like we were hiring for a person at the front desk, and we got little old company that my dad was running, right, with 20 employees. We got 100 people that put a resume in to pick a phone up, right? Because everyone was getting laid off. And so I get it. But the idea is that with that substantial number, I mean, that means that things are saturated right now, and that there is kind of this idea of you got to think about the pool, or you got to think about the people that are actually interviewing the pool. You got to say, these people are going to wait for the best thing because they know everybody's getting laid off. And so they're thinking like, oh, I can get $150,000 C-level executive that built a massive company or was part of it or on the board of it to come and work for me for 50 grand because they really need a job. And we're going to get a really good person from that, you know, like being patient and not giving them what they want, but getting what we want, right? That's what the employers are looking at right now, which is, I mean, I'm not saying that they're all malicious, but there's a lot out there of game playing in this process. And so you got to be ahead of it. Got to be way out in front of it.
Do you think it's a good idea to put photos? Sorry?
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if you think it's a good idea to put photos on your LinkedIn from business examples.
So like your portfolio, essentially?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if you just go use my LinkedIn as an example, because I built my business on it, you know, so find Dale Dupree on LinkedIn and there's multiple Dale Dupree. So just /IN/copier warrior is mine. And scroll down to like, you'll see the sales rebellion. There'll be a couple of videos that are attached in the featured section. You can actually stick, if you have a document as a post, you can stick. So that could be your portfolio work. You could stick it up there in the featured section for people to see when they come to the page. Inside of your bio as well too, you can attach documents and PDFs, right? So you can put video in there as well, but go and look at mine and you can see that even in all my experience, so the three firms that I've represented, the Sales Rebellion, North American Op Solutions, and Zeno, you'll see inside of there that like I even still have my videos from what work I did with them, right? My commercials I created, all my advertising, because it is important for people to come and kind of just see what you've done and experience what it is that you can create.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, why not? I want to ask a question and we'll jump in with Scott in a second. Dale, you mentioned, like, I think at least you mentioned, like, don't bring it up, like the age thing. And in a lot of ways, we also hear bring it up, like bring the objection up front, you know, just kind of attack it. Did I hear that wrong or like?
No, I just like, I like ageism is so confusing to me. And like anybody that's out there that's executing prejudice based around age is ridiculous. Like for me, like if a 65-year-old man or woman came to the Sales Rebellion right now, I'd be like, well, you're way older than all of us, but what can you do for us? What would be the difference that you would provide for us? Like, why do you see yourself fitting in here? Right. And I'd listen and I would even put them through to the second interview. Even if what they said didn't make any sense to me, I'd go, let's see though. Let's see. Cause I could be missing something here because I believe in the idea of divinity, first of all, you know, so if Heidi comes to me and asks me for a job, I'm going to listen, right? No matter who it is, I always listen, unless it's somebody on LinkedIn going, hi, sir, you know, comma, can I be part of your business, comma, I'm really good at graphic design, comma, like, sorry. But again, you know, the idea being, I think that this is the big thing about age. The big thing about age is that, yeah, there's a bunch of people that say, yeah, attack it. A bunch of people that say, don't attack it. I would personally show that I don't care how old I am, and you shouldn't either. That it doesn't matter. Our whack job president is 88 years old, guys. Like, and he's going to be 92 if he gets reelected. That's a crazy thought, right? A 92-year-old man running the country, right? Like, how in the world can Heidi not be the appropriate fit from an age perspective for the company that she's going out to try and work for? She has massive amounts of experience and success. And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. So it just boggles my mind.
I love that. No, 100%. Right on, man. That's right on. Love it. So Scott, thank you for your patience. Please kind of bring us up to speed. I know that you were most recently at TripAdvisor as an account manager.
Yes.
Kind of bring us up to speed, man. What's going on?
Yeah, so the past 2 weeks have been a little crazy. So I was at TripAdvisor. That obviously is not going well under the current economic conditions. But prior to that, I have 4 years experience, not necessarily selling, but working in marketing and some sales, more like investment management, as sales is related. So like going to hedge funds and saying, hey, here's this project over here that you guys might be interested in, stuff like that, in the blockchain space. And so I've been working with that, and a buddy reached out to me like 2 weeks ago and was like, hey, I'm writing this new programming language. I have a new company based in Berlin. I want you to help me on this contract. So through him, I've been kind of expanding my network in that industry. And then I'm also expanding my network through Wells Fargo right now, getting introductions and having phone calls every week, different individuals at different levels of the company in different departments. And seeing if I can fit in someplace there, which obviously is pretty difficult because they're going through a complete restructure right now, them in particular. And then the financial industry at large right now seems to be going through a pretty large restructure overall. There's a lot more mortgage lenders out there, and a lot of those jobs are going to disappear in probably the next 8 months and transition into other areas. So there's a lot of strategy and planning and budgeting going on right now. So it's just really uncertain. But that's kind of what I'm working with.
What do you want to do, bro? Like, what fires you up? What gets you going?
Building new things. So everything I've done with blockchain is completely new and fresh. So all the projects I've been with, they're all coming at a problem from a very unique angle, utilizing the technology in a way it's never been used before. So that's what gets me fired up. That doesn't necessarily pay the bills, I've learned over the years. It's more of an artist pursuit. So I was hoping to get into the financial space and move my way into that, because that is coming. Just last week, the SEC is allowing crypto custody now for all national banks in the US. So it's definitely coming, and it's like right here on the doorstep. So, with my experience, I'd be a pretty valuable asset at any one of those banks. Just need to get my foot in the door somewhere.
Yeah, it makes more sense now that you explain it that way, around like why you would get into the banking industry because of blockchain. So that makes a little bit more sense to me now. I guess really I don't hear that you're fired up about working for a bank is the problem. And so this is something that maybe somebody's told you at some point, or maybe nobody has, but you got to hear it. No matter what, you got to hear it from somebody. You can hear it from crazy Uncle Dale right now, that you've got to take the risk. You have to be willing to take the risk. Like right now, the thing is that if you go settle for a bank, bro, you could get stuck there for the next 10 years paying the bills. And because of the mindset and the mentality that you go into looking for the job in the first place. There's a tenacity that's needed, to an extent, to go and find something that is going to provide for you in that startup space. But it's not unreasonable to think that you can't find something. You just have to look a little bit harder, go a little bit deeper, head down roads that most people aren't comfortable going. Bro, there is no growth in your life without discomfort. Right. There is none. And so you have to start to sit back and focus on this. I love that. Do you have a family?
Yeah.
So I love that you're thinking forthright about paying the bills and protecting your family. I'm going to tell you right now that my house was for sale 4 times growing up as a kid, because my dad was like, all right, well, if we got to sell the house, then that's what I'm going to do to make sure that I can do what I love to do, and that I can serve and my family, and that we can thrive instead of survive, right? My dad was always ready at the drop of a hat to lose everything for the sake of the legacy he was building. And look what he got. He got a son that's on fire for him. He got a son that'll go out and give this kind of advice to other people, because I learned it through my own, father's actions. I would watch my dad, he'd be like, hey, I finally had a profitable year. And then he'd go and give every single person at the company some type of bonus, vacations, dinners, and spend all of it on those people. And I'd be in the background like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, shouldn't we be putting this away and saving it for later? He'd be like, we'll be dead soon, dude. And unfortunately that happened for my father in 2016. He died of cancer. But leading to that, you can say with that statement, with this idea of like, you're sitting in a place right now where you get to choose to become a legend or to just walk the path that is a little bit more, it's filled with people that are typically on it. It's a weird thing to say, but I don't recognize you as that person with the way that you started the conversation right at this place that's very innovative, this place that is expressive. It's like you said, like, it's more starving artist, bro. I was a musician for 8 years, and 6 of those I was on a major record label, and I toured all over the United States. Like, I know the game, and sure, I didn't sustain it to the point that I wanted to, but bro, I left it because of the drug abuse and the alcohol abuse and all the temptation that it provides, and I wanted a family, right? So I did it for personal reasons. If all those things all said and done, like, I could have conquered them with an ease, or just having to worry about the money, I'd be all in. I'd be the smelliest kid with his whole family in his CRV, following the tour bus because I lost everything, but I'm doing what I love, right? There's a simple fact though behind this as well too, is that people are looking for somebody with the attitude that I just poured out there to you. And I can feel, even though that there's insecurity around safety, I can feel that you want to be on the cusp of this thing that's happening, that it would bring you much joy and fulfillment to be able to say, not only, are the United States and other countries starting to create better rules for crypto and enabling blockchain, but that you're at the front lines to tell the story. Don't let somebody else tell this story for you, bro. You've got to tell it yourself. And so you've got to decide what right now, if when you talk about the bank and going to the bank because of all this safety, but you talk about the restructuring and I might be a clerk for all I know, like, that's not what you want, man. And so I can't tell you to go that way with a clear conscience.
Fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense.
What do you think about that? What do you think about that, Scott?
No, it makes a lot of sense. And I pretty much am at that like security junction where it's like, I can work with these guys. And actually, I was talking to a guy at Wells Fargo. I was like, if I were to work for you for 6 months, could I still work on this on the weekends? And I kind of framed it from for a nonprofit perspective. And he was like, yeah, you can. And I wouldn't lose any of my equity. So I'm trying to balance both. But we just kind of have to see. The only way this other project I'm working on succeeds is we need a we need a grant, which has come down to me, and I've never gone and written a grant before. So if you have any experience with anyone here, experience with that.
What state are you in?
I'm in South Carolina. It's a German-based company, so they're based in Berlin.
So fine. In South Carolina, which city are you in?
Clemson.
Nice. Go Tigers. Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah, I just got dropped here like a month ago, so you probably
cool.
might know more.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I have no idea. I have zero idea. I think that's actually LSU. That's the Tigers. It's Gamecocks. Yeah, Gamecocks. That's it. Yeah. So anyway, is it Tigers?
South Carolina. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
South Carolina. Yeah. Whatever it is. Who cares? Yeah. It's a non-issue. It's a non-issue. So they'll have an economic development commission in the city, and head to them and tell them that you're trying to write a grant and tell them your project. You might find more resources actually, like by going to somebody like that for help. But also there is like the Small Business Council and other places that you can go as well too that will help with those things. But try to find somebody local and that hears what you're asking, and then it's like, oh, we've written some grants too. Like, here, you can look at some of ours, and that gives you some very hands-on advice instead of just like, here's a manual online that you can access and learn to write a grant. If you can speak with somebody, flesh and blood concept, right? Like where somebody can pour out their experience to you, that'll be much easier. But really, so you started that sentence like this. You said, the only way that happens, and this is what I heard, is that if you make the effort, you're the one that decides whether or not that happens. It's not even about the grant, bro, because like, look, if you don't get it after you wrote the grant, you're starting to tell the story that we're talking about here. You're beginning the journey and the adventure. It's starting to build, right? These are the things that I did, the innovation that I created, the effort that I put in to what it was that I was doing. Your kids will hear that story one day. Their kids will hear that story one day. Those are things that are very, very legacy related, but you got to be focused on. You got to be thinking about not just like what protects everybody right now, but like what inspires them in 10 years, right? What writes the story from a different perspective. And look, like maybe you should go to another bank too. maybe you should call in a few. And maybe you should create some innovative ways of getting in touch with those people. Use LinkedIn, send voice notes after they connect with you, or a video through the mobile app. You can send video through direct messaging on the mobile app. A lot of people don't know that. And if you're doing things like that, I guarantee you that nobody's being connected to that way. They're going to say things like, yo, yeah, I'm open to talking to you, especially when they look at your profile and they see you've been in blockchain, right? And they start going, cool, this guy's hip, like you gotta sell yourself, right? You got to create your brand. You got to go out and put a little bit more effort. Like the common theme that I think I'm hearing so far is that I don't hear a lot of diversity around who you're approaching. You got a couple projects, right?
Right.
But I'm gonna tell you right now that you gotta be mindful of the fact that we used to joke like this. Okay, so when two reps inside of my organization were fighting over one account, I would usually pull out, a big map, and they were never really fighting. My guys were pretty amicable, but it would be kind of like behind the scenes, like, hey, you're gonna give me that account, right? I'd pull out a map and I'd say like, all right, so here's that one account, right? And then I'd be like, and there's 40,000 businesses over here. 40,000 businesses over here, right? Like, so why are we focused so much on this one account? Why are you focused on this one bank, this one connection, right? Especially like if they haven't hired you, like that's a big thing I'd say. And I think that kind of goes for Heidi's story as well too. Like people trying to hire you is cool. People doing it and making it come to fruition for you because they have a servant's heart, because they want to lead you into your own success is different. And there's someone out there waiting for somebody else with the tenacity, the audaciousness, the ability to be able to just like come through the front door and break it on the way in and then fix it on the way out, right? That concept of somebody that's all around who I'm looking for, right? And I believe that you can show that off in your own unique and authentic way, and people will love it.
All right.
I haven't had any coffee today.
That's awesome. Video, we feel one sort of way about video, as you guys can tell. You can also use Drift if you want to send it through the desktop. It's free up to a certain amount. No, but Dale, I love it. I feel like you're like partly speaking to me too. We should totally continue this conversation. I love it. Adam, so unless Scott, was there any other like questions or points that you wanted to make before we switch?
No, I'm good.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, man. So Adam, we've had a couple of conversations. You're awesome on the marketing front. You've kind of hit the ground running with us. You're a very unique guy. Not to hype you up too much, but please let us know kind of where you're at. How can we be most helpful?
Yeah, so Hytham and I have had like a lot of side threads because he's just an incredibly generous person for creating this whole movement and also for stepping in to coach me. Most recently, I was applying to this. Heidi was on the call, and I think Scott too last time. I was applying to a media company, and I had like this random weird connection where this now CEO of this media company once connected me with a celebrity who I later found out I was related to. It was this random long story that unfolded over the course of like 10 years. Celebrity was at my wedding and his family. It's crazy. So it was a good hook. And I also cared about both media and the company. My background has been in nonprofit for 10 years. And on top of that, you can layer on that every nonprofit I've worked for has like a big J for Jewish in it. That's both literally and figuratively. So it's like a hurdle to overcome for a lot of companies that I'm trying to pivot into. I've worked in media, but for a Jewish nonprofit. I've worked in education, B2B, marketing, everything, but they see a big J. So anyway, I reached out to the CEO, shared my story. I mentioned that I had applied, and he volunteered the name of the hiring manager. And I told this to Hytham. I was like, well, what do I do with this info? And he's like, go reach out to the guy. So he and was it Scott? Steven, yeah, Steven Brady, who were coaching me through like how to craft the message, and it worked. It was crazy. The guy got back to me. I was using Interstellar to track it. Guy wrote back, and I just had my interview yesterday, I think. And it was I don't know. The time all blends together in a weird way now, post-COVID. Felt like yesterday, and it felt really good. Like it went really well. The conversation was amazing. And I think my broader challenge is, that's like one interview that I was really excited for. And I was pleasantly surprised that the person seemed like really empathetic. And everything you just said, Dale, about like someone who's ready to open a door for you, you can tell when you feel that in an interview as someone who's interviewing. And I definitely got that vibe. So I'm hoping to build on the momentum, but I'm also curious, like, I think I need to keep a couple more doors open for myself just in case. You know, I'm a very emotionally intelligent person, and I don't want to get too invested in like, hey, this guy likes me. So any advice for how to juggle like multiple interviews slash professional dates along these lines, and like
Yeah.
how to juggle like the enthusiasm of you know, let's say like another example is I'd love to be in CPG and pivot into that industry, and work for a brand that has values to it, building off of my experience in nonprofit marketing leadership. I want to translate that to like some brand that I don't have to explain to any of my cousins who I see like whenever I see them. You know, I want them to know like, oh, you work for that yogurt company that I eat? That's great. And they do great things. I want to do that. I want to drive that. So how do I like not, how do I juggle like multiple interests while not losing the thread with like one that's really potentially opening a door for me?
Yeah, for sure. So emotional intelligence is probably one of the most important traits that most people aren't like taught to hone in on. So I love the fact that you have an awareness around that. But I would tell you, I would remind you that emotional intelligence is it's a weapon. It's you don't have to get sucked into the side of it where, because you have emotional intelligence and you know that you're getting overly emotional, that doesn't mean that you can't control it. Like, that's what emotional intelligence is. So remember that in the process of being like, oh, I really like this person, that's okay. You're allowed to really like this person. That's who you are. You're getting sucked into something that's just natural for you. But in the process of doing it, remember that that doesn't mean that this is your destiny, that this person is like where you're supposed to end up. You can still love them and be friends with them and care for them, or they could just be kind of like a fleeting thought in the process, that you'll appreciate from now until whenever you're gone, bro. Right? Like that, those are pieces of the puzzle that just kind of fit together naturally. Right? So being kind of entwined with this person, having good communication with them. I talk to employers all the time. They're like, yeah, you know, that they called me every day for 2 weeks. You know, we had 3 interviews and I felt like it was going well, and then they just went with somebody else. So there's a difference, right? Like, if you're emotionally intelligent, you know, if you're being overly zealous toward that strictly platonic romanticization of you being part of the company, right? Because that's what's kind of happening in the process of being very emotional, is that you're romanticizing this whole like, oh, I'm going to come work for you. And it gets everybody stoked, because at our core, we are emotional beings. Every human is. They're driven by love, by fear, by hate, right? We all have that at our core. So keeping a good relationship with this person doesn't mean that going and finding a couple other eggs to crack into is cheating on, you know, the relationship you have with them in their business by any means. It's about the idea too of also like very clearly stating like what you just did to me to them. Like, I would love to work for your company. These are my passions. Like, you don't have to say, but, you know, you just say, these are my passions. I want to work for the yogurt company that my friends and family eat, and go, oh yeah, they're a great company. They're doing good things. Like, you can say that to a future employer. You don't have to say that you'll do it outside of their organization. You just have to talk about what it is that your passion is. This is what I see myself doing. You know, that could drive them to actually want you more in some cases. Like, oh man, this is good. I need this guy. I need this Adam dude. Like, this is who we want. Or it could help you to see that it's not the right fit in the first place. Because listen, when people come and they work at the Sales Rebellion, and we're up to 16 employees right now, you know, when they come to me and they ask me, you know, this is what I want to do, this is how I see myself fitting into your organization, the first question I have for them is, are you willing to take my job? And how hard will you work to get it? Because I'm looking for my replacement every day, inside of the organization and outside of the organization. I'm looking for my replacement every day. I think I found him. I'm not gonna say who it is in case they're watching, but but like, it's a fun outlook. Like, and it also helps you to connect with the employer on a deeper level. And so think about it like this: like, you've got people like me out there looking for you, right? Number one. Secondly, it's not a juggling act, bro. You have to be extremely intentional. So no juggling allowed. So if you're over here with this guy right now and you're feeling good about things, but you kind of want to see what's over here, You got to pick one, maybe two firms in total at a time and go after them. Very intentional. You have to set a schedule for yourself, follow up, initiation, just like you're selling to them, just like you're marketing to them, right? You got to use your wits. You got to sit back and say, okay, I got to make this kind of quick too at the same time. Because if something comes in over here and I'm like, oh man, right in the middle of trying this out, like it's not going to work, right? And so being very intentional about time frames specifically. So like scheduling, like, hey, this is how much time I'm going to put into this. And then I need a decision back from that employer by this specific amount of time. And if they don't get it to me, then it wasn't meant to be, right? So not to say that putting your hands in, or your future into the hands of fate, but the hands of destiny is what it really is. When you create guidelines around it and say intentionally, I'm going to focus on these couple of things while I nurture this over here. And again, like that mindset of what you're doing over here can be relayed back to this job that you're looking at taking. And that person might even say, I want you even more now, or I have even more that I'd like you to do inside of the organization as well too. So never be closed off about information, never be closed off about your emotional intelligence, especially because it's a trait that most people lack. No, name me one company that does emotional intelligence training yearly for their employees, right? It doesn't exist. There are definitely firms coming up right now that are cognizant of it and are working toward things like that, but I had to go and get it myself. I had to go to retreats with strange people that I'd never met before and become extremely uncomfortable, which was great, but to go and to feed that part of who I was, right? I have to do it all the time with my own family and my friends and my wife because I want a better relationship all the time with them from that emotional standpoint, right? But a job here, it is over here at this job, right, that we check into every day from 8 to 5, and we check out of our skin and who we are. And then we check back into who we are after 5, right? That's a load of crap. I hate that mindset. I can't stand it whatsoever. That's not who Dale is, right? That's not who Adam is. It's not who Heidi is. It's not who Scott is. That's the bottom line, right? That you guys have to sit back and really decide for all of you, how are you going to bring emotional intelligence to all your decisions? Because that's what's going to create the most fulfillment for you. So don't stray from that, Adam. Like, don't run away from that feeling. Allow it to manifest with that relationship. And that guy could become your mentor, bro, right? If you do end up at one of these other ones, he could become your mentor. So allow that to play out naturally, right? Because he might give you the middle finger and tell you to, like, screw you, I hate you. And then you can be like, wow, I almost worked for this guy, right? I mean, like, those are very telling things as well too. So
that's also, I appreciate everything you just shared. Also in part because my 4-year-old ran into the interview while it was happening, which was also like so emblematic of how everything's different now. I handled it well, and I didn't even have to try. That was the great thing, because it was my kid. It was like, yeah, sure, why not? COVID.
yeah.
But I also appreciate like this. It really validated for me. Like I haven't been going so hard on like trying to get like 50 interviews in the basket at once. You know, so finding that balance of like just get the 2 or like maybe 2 or 3 who are really up there. Like that really helps me. So thank you.
You got it, bro.
That's awesome. I have a question related to what Adam just said, but also a point that kind of Dale hit on a little bit. So one of the other things that might happen is, like, dude, you don't love yogurt, right? Like, it's not like you're like, oh my God, I want to sell yogurt. You just love the feeling and like the emotion that comes behind, like you said, selling a brand that everybody loves. And he might, yogurt, I know you probably, yeah, maybe you love yogurt, but you know, you don't wake up every day saying, I want to go market yogurt. You know, what you said was, hey, I want to sell something that everybody loves and kind of have that feeling. He might find parallels in his organization where you can do that. And then all of a sudden he'll sell those back to you, right? And he'll be like, look, no, it's not all about like whatever you thought it was. Like, we want more of that on our team. And it's kind of the theme of all of this is you can use some of that to your advantage. It doesn't have to be a weakness, right? I have a question for Dale, because you do sales stuff all day, every day, and you do a lot of prospecting. So something that Adam mentioned, and we go back and forth on this all the time, and a lot of people do. So hyper personalization, like, you know, 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever per lead, right? 5 leads a day, 10 leads a day is better than super generic, like 100 emails a day or whatever type messaging, right? Is it one or the other? Is it a little bit of both? Is it like, hey, Adam, focus on 3 and then put like 50 of them in this other sequence?
I feel like the answer to that is yes, but at the same time, the 50 all have to have a purpose. Okay. I don't want to get too complicated and convoluted with this, right? Is why I say I feel. But the idea is that like when you look at the 50, you have to say like, why would I pick these in the first place? You know, just as a salesperson, you're like, oh, okay, cool. I'm going after dental offices, and you just spam 100 of them, right? But meanwhile, you haven't done any kind of research. Like you don't realize that this dentist is about to retire, and he sold his firm already, and he sold it to the one down the street. And you don't have any of this information. You're not relaying any of this in your messaging, and so you just sound like an idiot. Right? To them, they're just like, okay, sales guy that knows nothing, good for you. And so reaching out to so many people can have that effect on them. Because we're targeting 50, we can't have a more tailored and direct approach around it. And so we have to do something that causes an interruption instead. You know, it can't be just this like, oh, look at this pretty package. It has to interrupt, and it has to cause a massive amount of curiosity. So, you know, it's sending a cardboard cutout of yourself, Adam, to the 50 people that you want to get in front of them. Just be like, hey, y'all won't take an interview with me, but maybe you will with my best friend here, the cardboard cutout of myself. He's a great interviewer. You know, he says yes to everything. You know, like there's all kinds of little things that you could do in order to, again, like cause curiosity and interrupt what people are used to. And so I would say like in that mix of saying, well, here's 50 people that we probably should be trying to get in front of to some capacity. I would first ask, is the number 50 or is it 25? That's the first thing I always do in that moment. Is I say, when I'm doing something in bulk, I go, can we do 50? Can we do 25 and, you know, 50 in groups of 25, right? Will that work better is the concept. And then furthermore saying, what am I doing to stir that curiosity? What am I doing to radically educate the person that I'm reaching out to begin with, and not diluting my message because it's 50 people. We want them to feel like we're giving them an experience that they deserve. How many times, and Heather, maybe this has happened to you, like how many times have you gotten a video from somebody on LinkedIn after you've connected, but then you watch it and it's totally a generic video, right? Totally a generic video that they send to every person. And in the moment of watching it, you're sitting there watching it and you go, no. And you turn it up because you go, I'm not going to watch this for 2.5 minutes. You didn't even send this to me. You sent this to everybody.
I'd almost rather not even get the video. Like,
dude, right? So that's the mindset I think that I would share with everybody from that perspective is just be cautious about the way that people are going to perceive it. Perception is truth. Even if it's not necessarily what you're trying to relay, it's truth to the person that's taking it in. And you can't change that. So lead with intentionality and you'll cause a better perception of what you're doing.
I'm super curious about your what you do with your subject line. You're someone who strikes me as someone who would do something really different.
Which one? Which subject line?
Or like if you're prospecting, or if you're like when you're doing something like that, what do you say so that you make sure people open it?
I got a 70% open rate on one of my last emails that I blasted to my entire. So I have a very organic, let me preface this, I have a very organic sign up sheet. I don't spam people with it. I don't pull them out of LinkedIn. They can kind of stumble into it and sign up. And there's several thousand people on it. And so I said, I wonder how many people are just kind of bots in here that are kind of just like pulling my data or whatever they're doing. And how many people are actually real. And so I wrote an email and I put the subject line as, most subject lines suck anyway. And I got a 75% open rate. And it was funny because then you could really see who the bots were after that. It was like all the bounces and everything, right? But subject lines, like the idea is how do we create familiarity? If I tell you that most subject lines suck anyway, you're going to open that email. You're going to be like, yep, and open that email. And if I tell you that most salespeople suck, right? That's another one. Everybody hates salespeople is one that we put out there, right? You know, the idea of the crumpled letter, we have a digital version that we put destined for the trash bin is what we say in the subject line, so that the person, again, will stir a little curiosity and open it. You know, I've sent subject lines that say pizza with a question mark. But again, like it's about creating relevance as well too, and familiarity with people. You know, it's not just about shock and awe. It's about like what happens after they open it. Are they satisfied afterwards? Right. You know, the people that opened that email that I was just talking about, the first thing that they see when they open it up was made you look.
Right. Yeah,
so it might not be relevant to my company necessarily, but in that moment, it's very relevant to the reader, right? You know, and if inside of the email I'm saying, what if you could get more people to open your emails? You're going to be like, oh, okay, let's see what's going on here. So
that's good.
I like it.
Yeah. Anyway, I know we're running over time, but it is crazy how many emails I get from salespeople asking if I need help with sales, and their email is like atrocious. I'm just like, dude. But anyway, that's another topic for another day. Dale, thank you so much for jumping in.
Thank you.
This was awesome. Heidi, Scott, Adam, again, thank you guys for jumping in as well. I know we're getting out of our comfort zone a little bit here, but that's good. Look out for the videos. We're going to put this online. It's going to help a lot of people, and hope to see you guys again. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Stay dry.
Everybody.